My husband, 32 male, and I, 32 female, have been married for 3 years, and recently we were planning to buy a house and have a baby. So I asked my husband if we can both have health checks. I accidentally found out he had an STD. We were all very shocked and confused about his infection. He has always been a man with good manners. We'd also argue like other couples during our marriage, and I never checked his bills and cell phone. He's also a reliable friend in our circle of friends. Before we get into the sweet part, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because tomorrow's video is quite interesting. And trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. My name is Zoe. I'm 32, married for 3 years to a man I once believed was my safe place in a world that had always felt unstable. Caleb was gentle, disciplined, soft-spoken, the kind of man who made you feel like the world slowed down when he entered the room. We had a peaceful life, lived abroad together, shared the same quiet dreams, buying our first home, starting a family, living the kind of life that wasn't loud or flashy, but felt full. We were just about to take that next step, actually. We'd even started talking about having a baby, so I suggested we both get routine health checks, just to be safe, just to plan properly. It was a simple idea, responsible even, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. We sat side by side in the doctor's office. I wasn't nervous, just distracted, thinking about all the next steps, nursery colors, house deposits, maybe even a dog. The doctor glanced down at Caleb's results, then up at him, then at me. There was a pause. Then she said something that turned my entire world sideways. Caleb had tested positive for an STD. I blinked, not understanding. Caleb just stared. And I mean truly stared, like he didn't comprehend the words either. There must be a mistake, he said quietly, his voice a pitch higher than usual. I didn't say anything right away. I just sat there, frozen. A chill ran down my spine, the kind you feel when your body knows something before your mind catches up. The thing is, Caleb wasn't the kind of guy you'd suspect of cheating. He never partied, never drank, never touched drugs. He didn't even go out much, unless it was with me or for work. He was religious, deeply so, and came from a family that wore their morals like badges of honor. Our marriage wasn't perfect. Whose is? We argued, sure. We had our rough patches, but he always praised my efforts, trusted me to handle our finances, told me I was the glue holding our home together. He made me feel seen, needed. Still that day, something inside me cracked open. I come from a background of abandonment and emotional neglect. As a child, I was left to figure out too many things on my own. I developed what therapists call separation anxiety, though that phrase barely scratches the surface of what it feels like. I've worked hard over the years, read all the books, done online CBT, had long, uncomfortable conversations with myself. Caleb knew all of this. I'd told him everything, and he responded with kindness, said he and his family would love me the way I always deserved. At the time, I believed him with all my heart. So when I found myself staring at his STD results, I started doubting everything, but not in the explosive, angry way you might expect. No, my reaction was quieter, slower. I didn't confront him. I didn't scream. I just started observing. A few days later, we received a family photo from one of Caleb's relatives. It was from a recent family reunion in his home country. Caleb had gone alone. Travel restrictions kept me from traveling with him. The photo was sweet. I wanted to print it out and frame it, but it was sent to Caleb's other phone, the one he only used back in his country. So I asked if I could use it to send the picture to myself. He nodded, distracted, and handed it to me without hesitation. That's when it happened. I opened the photo album, looking for the picture, and there, they were, dozens of images, some blurry, some too clear. Caleb with other people, not just women, men, trans people. Intimate, undeniable moments. Photos you don't just forget about or misplace. Photos that told me more than any words could. My heart started pounding. I went still, like an animal sensing danger. I didn't drop the phone, though. I kept scrolling. My hands trembled. Tinder messages, Grindr hookups, his inbox full of conversations with strangers. A different name, a different lie in every thread. While I was stuck abroad, worrying about whether he was safe, whether he missed me, he was doing this. Still, I didn't say anything, not right away. I watched him for days, played casual, even used his phone in front of him again. Nothing. No twitch. No flinch. He acted like everything was normal. That's when I began to seriously panic. What if he wasn't just hiding it? What if he truly didn't remember? What if something deeper was wrong? I'd always joked about how Caleb could forget things he didn't want to deal with, how he sometimes shut down when emotions ran high. But this was something else. It felt like I was married to a ghost wearing my husband's skin, so I came up with a plan. I told him my anxiety was flaring up and that I needed to see a therapist, that I'd feel better if he came with me. He agreed, no questions asked, always the supportive husband, right? When we arrived, I waited until we were both seated in the therapist's office before pulling out the photos and messages. I found his reaction stunned me. He looked genuinely shocked, eyes wide, brows furrowed. "Where did you get that?" He asked slowly, like someone waking up from a dream. I watched him closely, searching for any flicker of guilt or denial. There wasn't any. Just confusion. The therapist picked up on it immediately. We started sessions, they ran tests, asked questions, probed gently. Eventually, the diagnosis came in. Not DID, like I feared, but a powerful psychological defense mechanism. Caleb had experienced trauma as a child. Sexual assault, to be exact. He'd buried the memory so deeply that any time something in his adult life triggered that same helplessness, his brain locked away the emotions again. It made sense. Horrifying, heartbreaking sense. His repressed memory, the shutdowns, the emotional silences, it all connected. And then came more news. Caleb and all his siblings had ADHD and mild autistic traits. It explained the emotional gaps, the poor coping mechanisms, the bizarre way his whole family seemed to log off emotionally when things got hard. But here's the kicker. None of that stopped the pain from flooding in. I started to replay every red flag I'd ignored. Every time his family treated me like I didn't exist when he went home. Every time they stopped messaging in our group chats. The way they only ever celebrated good things and avoided uncomfortable conversations. The way I'd always felt like I was just a placeholder when Caleb was abroad. Someone they needed to keep close only when he was far, even when I reached out to them during his trips. Pleading for updates, trying to connect, they brushed me off. Told me they were sorry but nothing changed. Their empathy was polite, hollow, rehearsed, and I was just trying to hold everything together. Caleb had told me before we married that he was pansexual. I'd accepted it, truly. I believed love wasn't about gender, but about connection. He'd said I was the first woman from a conservative culture who accepted him fully, and he thanked me for that often. Said I was brave. Said I was the reason. He believed in love again. And yet, 3 years in, here we were, standing in a storm neither of us had prepared for. I wanted to hate him. God, I really did. But instead, I just felt empty. I'd already been betrayed in a past relationship. Cheated. On left bleeding emotionally. It took years to rebuild my trust. When Caleb proposed, I told him all of it. He hugged me and said I deserved pure, sincere love, and I believed him. I never checked his phone, never doubted him. But in the end, I was right back where I started. Except this time, the betrayal didn't come with the slam of the door. It came with a broken man sitting beside me who couldn't even remember doing the things that tore me apart. And the worst part? I wasn't even sure who I was, more heartbroken, for him or me. I sat there frozen, gripping the edge of the bench in that hospital corridor. The doctor's words kept echoing in my head like a warped lullaby. He has no memory of the affair, or of you finding out. I had come here thinking I'd get some answers, maybe even a half-hearted apology. But what I got was something else entirely, grief layered in confusion. Jason wasn't faking it. He truly didn't remember. And not just the affair. He didn't remember the confrontation, my tears, or how our lives collapsed in a single evening. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or furious. This wasn't the resolution I had envisioned. There was no closure, no final blowout, just silence, and a man who looked at me like I was a stranger with a history he couldn't touch. I stood up, legs shaky, and peered through the narrow window into his hospital room. Jason sat on the bed, staring at a muted TV screen, blank-faced. A nurse walked in and adjusted his IV. He smiled at her. It was that soft, polite smile he used with strangers. Exactly what I had become to him. When I stepped into the room, his eyes found mine, but there was no recognition. "Hi," he said hesitantly. "You're Maddie, right?" "Ah," I said quietly. He nodded slowly. "Sorry, I've seen your name in the paperwork. You look familiar, but everything's kind of foggy." I gave a tight smile and pulled the chair closer. "It's okay. The doctors said that might happen." He studied me for a second. "Were we close?" The question hit harder than a slap. I looked at him, this man I had once planned a future with, whose laugh used to fill our apartment, whose betrayal I had screamed over in the dead of night. Now he was just asking, like our love had been stored on a hard drive that got wiped in one violent swoop. "We were married," I said, my voice barely holding itself together. His eyes widened. "Married? Yeah. To you." I forced a nod. Jason stared at the bedsheets, clearly shaken, and what happened? "Why aren't we?" I looked away. "You had an affair," I found out. It destroyed everything. He blinked hard, as if trying to summon a memory from the void. "I don't remember anything like that." "I know," I said. "The doctors explained everything." He shook his head slowly, overwhelmed. "God, Maddie, I'm sorry. I don't." I interrupted, a mix of pain and exhaustion bubbling in my throat. "Don't say you're sorry for something you don't even remember." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. "You're different than I remember," he finally said. "Not in a bad way. Just stronger, maybe, or more guarded." I let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah, heartbreak tends to do that." The next few minutes were filled with small talk, awkward, hollow, strange. He asked about our wedding, our apartment, if we had a pet. I told him bits and pieces, leaving out the ugly truths. No mention of the months I spent crying in the bathtub, or how I screamed at the walls when I saw those texts from her. No mention of the night I packed my bags while he slept on the couch, passed out after one too many drinks with the woman who had been my replacement. Instead, I told him about the first time we met at a bookstore, both reaching for the same novel. He smiled at that, genuinely, and I felt something twist in my chest. "I can see that," he said. "Us meeting like that? You seem like the type who reads the ending before the middle." Oh, I smirked. "You always said that." Later that evening, I sat in the hospital cafe, picking at a dry muffin. I texted my best friend Serena, who had been my rock through this entire ordeal. She called immediately. "You okay?" she asked. "I don't know," I whispered. "He doesn't remember anything. Not the affair, not the fight, not even me." "Are you glad about that?" "That's the problem. I don't know." Part of me wants to scream at him again, just to get it out. But it's like yelling at a ghost. "You're under no obligation to fix this, Mads," she said gently. "Whatever he's lost, you didn't take it, and you don't have to give it back." Her words lingered, but so did the guilt. The next few days became a strange routine. I visited Jason in the afternoons, mostly out of obligation. Each time, he asked new questions about us, about what happened. Sometimes about her, though he didn't know her name. I hadn't told him. I didn't think I could. One day, as we sat by the hospital window watching the rain, he turned to me and said, "Do you think I loved her?" The question made my stomach knot. "I think you thought you did," I replied carefully. "Or maybe you were just trying to escape something." He looked thoughtful. "And what about you? Did I love you?" I looked out the window. "At one point, yes. And I loved you, too. Maybe more than I should have." He sighed. "It's weird living in the shadow of your own mistakes." That line stayed with me all night. The following week, his discharge day arrived. He was well enough to go home to a new apartment his sister had set up. The doctor said his memory might return in fragments, or maybe not at all. Encouraged a familiar environment, routine, and therapy. I offered to help move some of his things, not because I had to, but because some part of me needed to see the ending through. As we unpacked boxes in his modest one-bedroom apartment, he found an old photo of us at the beach, sun-drunk and laughing. "You look happy," he said. "You were cracking jokes about getting a sunburn in the shape of a heart," I recalled. He grinned. "Sounds like something I'd do." He studied the photo a moment longer, then looked at me seriously. "Do you think there's any part of us worth salvaging?" I paused, unsure how to answer. "I think there was, once. Too much happened. Even if your mind forgot, my heart didn't." He nodded solemnly. "I get that." We stood in silence, both of us staring at a snapshot from a life that no longer existed. Before I left, he walked me to the door. "Thank you for everything, for being kind, even when I probably don't deserve it." "You're welcome," I said, but I wasn't kind. I was just tired of hating someone who can't even remember why I should. He gave me a look I couldn't quite read. "If I ever do remember everything, would you want to know?" I thought for a moment. Then I said, "Only if the truth would change anything. Otherwise, let it stay buried." He opened the door for me. I stepped into the hallway, heart heavy but strangely lighter than before. As I walked to my car, I realized something. Closure doesn't always come with answers. Sometimes it's just a decision to stop needing them. I had spent months grieving, a version of Jason that no longer existed. But I wasn't grieving anymore. I was healing, slowly, quietly, and that finally was enough. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to follow and subscribe for more of these stories. We have also handpicked 2 more stories that we believe you will enjoy watching. Enjoy.